Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon if you're in Europe or Asia. Good morning if you're in the United States. Welcome to today's webinar presentation, where we're going to be talking about cognitive AI and how we can leverage this to really transform customer engagements. My name is Phil First. I'm the CEO Chief Analyst at HFS Research. Many of you may be familiar with me. I've been running this research company now for 8 years. I've been in the industry for about 20, both as an analyst but also as an advisor. I also worked at Gartner AMR and IDC in my past. And we coined the as-a-service economy, which many of you will be familiar with, in 2014. And then more recently, the Digital OneOffice last year. So we'll be talking a lot about the Digital OneOffice today and how this really provides this sort of back to front view of the enterprise, and how key technologies like cognitive and AI are really playing a key role in getting us to the outcomes we want to achieve. I've worked in many engagements, particularly in operations in the time, and I'm very excited to work with a very esteemed panel today. If they could quickly introduce themselves. So first and foremost, Chetan Dubey of IPsoft.
Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Chetan Dubey, CEO of IPsoft, providing cognitive and autonomic solutions to 1 in every 10 Global 2000 company.
Fantastic. And we're also greeted by Matt Tomlinson, Electronic Arts. Matt.
Good day, everyone. It's nice to present to you all. Here to talk about some of the innovation work we're doing with artificial intelligence.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, my colleague, Research Director, Melissa O'Brien.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Melissa O'Brien here. I am Research Director with HFS, covering all of our customer engagement and front office strategies research.
Excellent. Good. So, just to start as well, we actually completed a very enticing research study. We spoke to 100 C-suite executives from the Global 2000, where we really wanted to get into their usage and understanding and dynamics around cognitive capabilities and how they were leveraging it within their customer, supplier, and employee environments. So if you get a little time, do pop to our website. It's free. You can't often say that, but there's a fantastic report available. Here's the address, so our hfsresearch.com. Go to points of view and you'll see it sitting there. You can download a copy of that and read it in your own time, and we'll be talking about some of the findings from that report today. A little bit about us. We're all about what we say is defining business operations at HFS. We like to really visualize the future of business operations, through the eyes of this OneOffice framework. We really try and look at the big change agents impacting business operations, whether they are automation or AI. We look a lot at blockchain and digital business models and analytics, and we really try and help clients fathom how these can enable you to get to where you want to get to. Ultimately, all enterprises need to have outcomes, goals, missions, and these technologies, they're merely conduits to help you get there. And today we'll be drilling into a lot of the AI cognitive part of those conduits. And we work a lot with big enterprises. We work with a lot of the service provider communities, as well as some of the emerging tech firms like IPsoft today, who we did this study with, to really help them understand where the industry is going and impact the market as well with many of the things we're doing. We also have a very interesting partnership with Cambridge University. We're actually doing a conference with them in July, so if you'd like to come, go to hfsevents.com. We're actually staging the conference at Gonville Keys, which is the college of the late departed Stephen Hawking, and we'll actually have a presentation from the college master as well about his life and times, and have a little celebration of his achievements during that summit. We also have summits this year for HFS in Bangalore, New York City in December, and we're back in the UK in London next March. So I look forward to maybe meeting many of you then. And as I mentioned earlier about change agents, we really look at what we see emerging as this digital operations industry. where we look at the impact of smart analytics and RPA, AI, etc. on the business. And for the first time ever, we're seeing this coming together of professionals right across tech, process, business, and advisory, forming what we see as this digital operations industry, which is emerging as we look at the next wave of business. So to sort of start where we go today with a lot of our thoughts, this is from our brand new survey that we run annually with KPMG at the State of Operations. We speak with 381 buyers from Global 2000 leaders of operations, and we've asked them how critical the C-suite directives are on the operation strategy. So at the top, as we always see, it's all about driving down cost. Poor old operations, they're always being driven to keep taking out more and more cost as and when, someone, said the other day, my CFO used to come back from conferences 10 years ago, and he always wanted to figure out how we could save money from offshoring and outsourcing. Now it's all about automation and AI, but driving down cost is still very much the name of the game from a high level. But to do that, I think the conduits are changing. So the second biggest directive coming from the C-suite to operations is around the creation of real-time data and data that supports much more predictive decision-making. It's about adopting process automation to drive down the reliance on transactional labor. And it's also around aligning middle to back office operations to really improve customer experiences, which is the core of a lot of what we're talking about with OneOffice. But just behind that, I think as an emerging directive, which is becoming increasingly important to nearly half of the enterprises we spoke to, investing in cognitive and machine learning to drive more value from labor is really emerging as we look at the future. Our research has taken us down many paths, and one of them is the plague of unstructured data. And I love this term. We need to get rid of our data swamps if we're ever going to find these wonderful data lakes. But our research has shown us that barely a quarter of organizations today have actually got more than half of their data structured. And many of these conversations actually start with getting your data in some sort of shape to be able to start to look at things like automation and AI before you can really do anything. So fixing your data underbelly is really something which so many enterprises are tackling right now. And when we get into the impact from automation and AI, we've done a lot of research you probably see around RPA, robotic process automation. And the impact there is it's much more about cost. Whereas I think with AI, we're really getting into this value area. This was a study we ran last year with a large number of enterprises from the Global 2000 who are leading AI initiatives within their organizations. And we really asked them what their greatest benefit was. And they actually see it's more about augmenting the capabilities of knowledge labor and creating new revenues than actually just driving out cost and replacing transactional labor, that sort of thing. So I think as we move beyond some of the bases of automation, when clients are getting more into the cognitive AI space, it's really about how do we actually empower our high value smart staff, our smart talent, not just look at constantly trying to take out cost at every opportunity. Another thing we really need to take into account, and this is our brand new state of industry study we did with KPMG, the time frames are getting quite frightening in industry. So we literally said, when do you expect your directives to be achieved in terms of these operational activities? And you can see here, within 12 months, 41% of enterprise leaders really expect to have this real-time predictive data available to them. Nearly a third are looking to get cognitive and machine learning driving more value within a year, 60% within 2 years, and a similar number are looking to align the middle back office more effectively to improve their customer experiences. So we really believe that a lot of people are going to be held accountable quite quickly for a lot of the investments we're seeing taking place today in industry. I'm hearing about vast sums of money going into some of these automation initiatives and RPA rollouts. These people are going to be held to account. 27% are going to be held to account within a year on where's the value. And if you're going into something like RPA and your goal is to just drive out cost and drive out transactional labor, you will be expected to serve up headcount and cost as a result of that. So I do feel we're starting on a bit of a crunch time for much of industry as we move forward. So this gets us to the OneOffice framework, and I like the earlier OneOffice chart because it's fairly rudimentary and simple to understand, but it's really all about not only defining digital, but providing a meaningful framework that comprises of 5 fundamentals that really come together when we look at this. And it's all about optimizing the flow of data, collapsing the barriers across departments between customers, partners, and employees. And the first one is about fostering genuine digital customer, partner, and employee engagement. And when you think about it, a genuine digital organization really has that ability to take all that cool social, mobile, and interactive technology we use in our personal lives and create that real experience of people in the environment. And it's supposed to empower them to interact with each other seamlessly and in real time. We've got to remember that digital is really about driving new business and new revenue channels, and that's through driving this digital engagement much more effectively. Other things we look at is embedding design thinking techniques to achieve these continuous digital outcomes. Really design thinking offers an approach for a diverse group of people to work together to identify and articulate a common problem, brainstorm ideas for addressing it, quickly wireframe, prototype it to test it, and then continue to iterate it on the idea as it takes shape into a proposed solution. So a design thinking-led approach to designing a digital OneOffice framework really moves the focus of the operational executive away from the process itself and much more of the what's wrong inside of what we do, and move into more of a what do we actually want to achieve and what do we want people to feel and do naturally that will lead to further engagement and new and different results. And this is where capabilities like cognitive become so important, because they help achieve a lot of these outcomes that are designed within the organization. We also need to look at how to build a scalable digital underbelly that automates, it digitizes, it cloudifies, and it secures. Every siloed data set restricts the analytics insight that makes process owners strategic contributors to the business. And you really can't transform a business operation without converged real-time data. So digitally driven organizations must create this digital underbelly to support the front office by automating manual processes, even digitizing manual documents, creating converged data sets, and embracing the cloud in a way that enables genuine scalability and security for the digital organization. We need to look at how we can achieve a digital support function that operates without hierarchies and silos. And a progressive OneOffice much prefers flat structures where staff naturally collaborate in autonomous cross-functional teams motivated by shared outcomes. They look much more at the dynamic management where managers and staff can constantly interact to fine-tune performance against evolving outcomes, and they can manage really diverse workforces across global cultures. And then finally, much of what we'll be talking about today, the big fundamental that really drives many organizations forward is this ability to establish intelligent cognitive processes that promote predictive decision making. The digital OneOffice, it's not about collecting and archiving historical data simply to discover what went wrong. It's about being able to predict when things will go wrong and devising smart strategies to get ahead of them. The OneOffice is about embedding smart cognitive applications into process change and workflows. It's about learning from mistakes and new experiences along the way. It's almost like the organizational neural network. It's where cognitive technologies, advanced analytics, and automation really help create the capability necessary to operate in digital environments by automating and extracting the data needed real time to respond to markets, support critical decisions, and just keep clients ahead of the game. And here you can see how many of these sort of conduit technologies are being deployed across these areas to help fuse together these functions, draw out, broaden many of these process chains, and really make them work effectively. So we see a lot of the RPA and RDA captured more in the kind of the standardization of the underbelly, whereas when we get into the intelligent support functions and the forward-looking predictive processes, that's where we see a lot of the cognitive and AI processes really start to come to bear. So just to sort of leave you, on the OneOffice for a little takeaway for where it's going, it's a framework where teams function autonomously across front, middle, and back to promote broader business processes, promote real-time data flows, really support rapid decision making. It's where the front, middle, and back offices cease to exist. They're going to simply be one office. And I'll leave you with one data finding, which I think is really topical as we take us through today's conversation. We ran a big study of digital decision makers from the Global 2000, and we asked them what mechanisms really support a digital operating model that really achieves this customer alignment. And I thought it was interesting to pick out that this is more about changing how we work with our existing talent and then cultivating algorithmic automation and AI capabilities. And you can see one of the things companies are doing more than anything right now is implementing design thinking. They are really working on how to get teams to work autonomously across functions to really start to develop these seamless end-to-end processes. And they're also trying to cultivate employees that understand and apply new digital opportunities that are being driven by this capability to understand algorithms, automation, and AI. And these are more prominent than just changing your digital customer interfaces and your channels, or trying to adopt a new platform that you could really start to behave more like an Uber or an Airbnb. A lot of traditional businesses have realized they can use a lot of what they have and then deploy smart applications and a new way of looking at things to really have that impact that they actually need. You don't have to go through sometimes completely 360 rampant change to get to where you want to get to. So upon that note, I would like to now hand off to my esteemed guest today, Chetan Dubey. So Chetan, if you could take this away.
Thank you very much, Phil. I think what Phil described has got what I believe, and I think we believe could be a seminal work of our times. To be able to converge the front and back office, to be able to come up with this one office concept. Because I think if we were to simplify and look at like, what is the goal? Let's begin with the goal in mind. What are we trying to achieve? What are the prominent CIO challenges that a CIO is trying to tackle? And as Phil mentioned, one of the table stakes is just the cost savings. And RPA has attacked a lot of the cost savings aspects of it. But I think the equation has moved up from just attacking cost savings, and I think the equation has moved towards, can we get a better net promoter score? Can we create value? What Phil described. That's what most of the businesses are now starting to mature, particularly as they move up the digital Darwinistic curve, and I move up on the maturity curve there. They're starting to see, can we create better customer experience, whether it's our internal business units or end customer? We want to be able to deliver improved first time right. We want to be able to deliver improved time to resolution. Take the example of an alt state where you just saw the first time rights go up from 67% up to 75%, and you saw the mean time to resolution drop from 4.6 minutes down to 4.2 minutes. And so that's what people are targeting currently. And then they want to look for an improved control over their environment. They want to be able to manage and control all aspects of their shared services infrastructure. And if we can just back up one slide just to stress one point here, I want to make sure that I can, so how can we deliver that is the big question. How can you deliver all these three legs of the stool that often don't converge at the same point? How can you deliver cost savings year on year and a better value creation equation with a better net promoter score and deliver integrated improved control? We believe the answer is what Phil pointed out, one office. The convergence of front office and back office. If you look at RPA in itself is one third of the equation. It's attacking, As Phil pointed out, you have RPA, you have these segmented solutions of automation that exist throughout the whole stack. You have RPA attacking one segment of the IT automation. You have what he called human middleware sitting in the middle, copious amounts of human middleware. And then you have machine learning, another fragment coming up in front for the digital underbelly that Phil described. And in the front, you have your chatbots coming in, which are giving you some flavors of AI in the front. These different things are often coming in. They need to be connected in one seamless way for you to achieve end-to-end automation and achieve a better customer experience and achieve a better cost savings. The moment you introduce the disjoint factors in these, the weakest links in the chain will dictate the strength of the chain. And that's what you start to find most often in the industry. And that's why you find that the dissatisfaction, according to the research done by HFS, is 45% with just classic RPA solution, because manual config and part solutions, which is not what will deliver the kind of customer value that you are hoping to create. So what we need, what do you need really? You need RPA raised to the power of cognitive, which is one task, which is much greater in its value creation than RPA alone. What you need really, can you create, you have an operating system for your server, you have a Linux operating system, Windows operating system for your server. You on the IPT phone that I've got a Cisco iOS operating system running that. Can I have a cognitive operating system for the enterprise? Can you create such an operating system that is natural language understanding for the entire set of shared services that an organization and that you're responsible for delivering? Can you create what Phil described as organizational neural network that can be on top of all of these things, that can provide a seamless experience for both your internal and external customers and improved time to resolution? And then you would have created what would be a digital colleague for both your internal and external customers, who's there to assist them and improve their quality of customer care. So I think with your indulgence, I'd like to just skip directly into showing you how this is actually working. As mathematicians, we like to be able to go directly into seeing the proof is often in the pudding. And so when we look at care streams and we look at UBSs and we look at BlackRocks, we start to see that they're deploying the technology that we're just about to show you. Meet OneDesk, which is the epitomization of Phil's concept of OneOffice. What are you looking for? This is an active deployment, as I said, Carestream and their CIO, Gerson Banker, and others have led this, where what are you looking for? You were looking for, well, table stakes for cost savings. You can see that at this point in this environment, the number of digital colleagues that are active is 96.7, which means that you would need 96 people right now to be able to handle the call volume that is coming in and being served by your OneDesk. You can also see a gradation of how many FTE hours have been saved. You can see, so that was your cost savings, which is table stakes. But you want to be able to get better customer experience. You want to be able to deliver improved times to resolutions. You want to be able to deliver improved first time right. And that's where you see Lean Six Sigma stepping in to be able to quantify that for you. And you can start to see your QoS scores varying here. If you can see my mouse, you can see in the research development CSI and overall QoS how it is varying. And you can trend that over a period of time to see how is my digital cognitive operating system being rated by the business unit that it serves. I think the third thing that you wanted was integrated control over your entire environment. Now, you clearly see a Twitter kind of feed. If you go up to the top, you can see that there is a webinar going on, and if you click on that, you will be able to see the details of that. But most importantly, what you see here is that you will be able to get notified on your SEV1 outages and things like that. But this is commonplace, so we don't want to really belabor on that, that you will be able to be notified on your different outages. But what's really important, the third leg of that stool, was you wanted integrated control. You wanted end-to-end automation. And we present to you live that end-to-end automation, which does not exist anywhere else in the industry. If you look at your command center, now you have at your fingertips a complete control and ensuring that every task is being walked from inception to satisfactory resolution in an end-to-end fashion through an automated chain, be it layering cognitive competence on top of an autonomic backbone, on the digital underbelly tied together with ML and organizational neural networks, as Phil described, but you have an end-to-end way of automating and delivering superior customer experience. Let's walk through this. So how are your things happening in your environment? And you can, if you can follow my mouse, you can see that things are happening in your environment in an omni-channel way. You can see that things are coming in through web, text, call, landline, email, social media, comments. They are being all classified, any of the DNN techniques that you see. I mean, you recently saw the recurrent neural networks being deployed in LSTM networks by Google. You will be actually able to classify them. But that's not the only way that your tasks are coming in. You also see tasks coming into your environment by monitoring exceptions happening. And both monitoring exceptions happening and also predictive monitoring, where you are able to correlate and say, there is a material deviation from standard operating parameters. And so I need to be able to see what exactly has deviated from these standard operating procedures. And I see that the flight operates at 33,000 feet. Why is it dropping down to 10,000 right now? There must be some exception happening. So you are able to do that with this, and you're able to correlate them so that you can also get what is the root cause associated with these exceptions. And then, of course, you've got your logs also indicating to you what exceptions are coming into your environment. All of that is flowing in now. Now, typically, all that flows in right here. You have massive ticket generating machines. I say no to tickets. Tickets are inherently in operations research queuing concepts. And these ticket generation machines, by the way, charge you on the basis of per user. They are in fact promoting the fact that you'll be, every user that you, every manual entity that you put into your front office, it'll be more money for them because it's going to be, or every person that's using manual entity is what is charged on this basis. But these are nothing but queuing systems here. They must be automated. We must have the things that have come into this fully qualified task list that you see right here in the middle must be picked up and auto-classified. This is where the top layer of cognitive is meeting the bottom layer of autonomics. This must be picked up here, and it must be classified as incident, request, changes, problems, all those good ITIL v3 concepts that you are so familiar with. And thereafter, once we classify them, we must try to see if we can invoke automation, autonomics, or RPA to run it. If automation were existent, then we could run it. If it weren't existent, then we would obviously, you can see if you follow this flow, you would obviously have to now go and escalate to a human being. This is the only part where a human being needs to come in. Human being, even the manager who is doing this dispatch must be automated. It must be programmatically enforced. Best principles of Six Sigma. We must be programmatically dispatching to the best available skill set that can handle this customer issue. And then we dispatch it manually. When an engineer you see connects here, you can start to see he's connecting to a specific issue. The system must automatically learn. Teaching is manual. Creating RPAs by hand is manual. Manual automation is an oxymoron. We need automated creation of automation. And that is done by empirical learning. When the engineer is going about fixing an issue, you are seeing the learning aspects of automatas and RPAs being built, and then you see it being submitted to a CSI queue, which is continual service improvement queue, and thereafter, once it has been approved, it flows right back into the automation pool. Now, I could go into each one of these ITIL v3 concepts in detail. Service transition, you can see there are over 45 different applications here. Service operations, you can see all of these different ITIL v3 things, your continual service improvement and service delivery management. But I would say, I would ask you, do you really need to know the Faraday's principles of induction to turn on the light switch? Do we really need to pull the business user down to the ITSM weeds? Do we really need your business user or your end customer down to a service catalog, opening up a CMD, opening up needs an IP phone, service catalog, CMDB, add device, hardware, select a phone, fill up a form, and what does it do? Opens a ticket. Do we really need that? Is there a better, more efficient, converged, end-to-end, automated, one-office way? And I'm here to share with you all that I've shown you here. Forget everything and just go to the cognitive layer. Go to your organizational neural network and let's test it. Let's test how a business user could actually ask different things. So let's say we start with saying, my Outlook is not working. Okay, give me a moment while I look into your account. It asks me my username, obey. I provide it to the username, and it's going to try and see if it can fix my problem. Now, if this was just a simple, and different chatbots will be able to tell you that we are able to fix this out. So let's say we are fixed with this. Yes, I'm good with this thing. And now I say, having a bad day, let's say, think I forgot my password. Now you've seen this commonly, resetting a password. It is fairly frequent. And you see, yep, I'm able to do all the common tasks which are required. A customer's administrator is wanting to set his password, and you can actually get it to be fixed. So it's going to try and see if it can. This is, by the way, actually doing it now. So let's say I'm able to log in, let's say. Now I say, let's graduate this thing. So all the common issues that you would be facing, you're easily able to handle that. All the common the Pareto of Six Sigma, the 80%, 20% rule, which means the top 20% of exceptions relate to the same, the top 80% of exceptions relate to the same 20% of root causes. So let's say we are able to do all that. Now we get to like more interesting things. I say I need to get Wi-Fi, let's say. Let's say, let's guess Wi-Fi for an important visitor. Let's say Phil is planning on visiting me. So I'm trying to see if I want to get, okay, please select the location. Of course, Phil is coming over to New York from London. Finally, spring, so he can actually come over here. So let's say, please enter the name of, so, master for this spelling with your indulgence. Phil, organization's name, HFS Research. And you can obviously also speak to it. And now if I say, now here is, let's enter his name. So, Phil, I'm not sure if I know, but I'll test it. Please enter a start date. Now you can see that these are different threads that you might have seen in the industry where you say, oh, good, but they're nothing more than IVR 2.0. they're not really human. Artificial intelligence is defined as the ability to mimic human intelligence. They're not really mimicking neocortical activities. They're still the decision tree in the back with a thin veneer of what we call a support vector machine or linear classifier. It's not even a DNN classifier, which just maps it into one of the buckets. Now, we want to test this and say, no, humans don't like to be caught in a maze. Humans don't like to be in such a deterministic decision tree. That's why IVRs had failed, intelligence voice recognition had failed. Let's say if I say, no, I don't, oops, forgot. Let's say I forgot something. I forgot, can you check status of one of my tickets that I was seeing, of one of my tasks? So I'm now like switching the context completely. I was in the middle of like providing Phil guest Wi-Fi access. As a human, you are able to spread activate in your neocortex from one thread to another thread and completely context switch and load in the new activation number. And we saw one of the stacks there. Let's say if I say 3243, I'm looking at the one that we just saw a moment ago, and we are now querying what is the status of this thing, and we see it was resolved of this thing. Aha, it actually gave me the status of that task, but it is now coming back and remembering the context in which we were before. Do you want to continue requesting the guest Wi-Fi? I say, yes, and I'll start date. I go, let's say Phil is coming in a few days, and let's say he's coming in for a couple of days, and we can type it in any different ways. And I think it's still I type with one finger, so you have to bear with me without me speaking to this. Do you want to submit the request? So if I say yes, let's submit the request. Now it will open that, and Phil will receive this from Amelia, telling you that you will have a guest Wi-Fi the next time Phil is here in our offices. But now let's say we graduate progressively. Now we are adding, let's do complex tasks more and more. So we say, you are being very helpful. Can you add storage to my cloud instance? Yeah. So, sure. Now, wow, this is really a digital genie. I'm able to now go ahead and say everything from the basic table stakes that you see tons and tons of little things there for. I'm able to just not only reset passwords and all that little stuff, but I'm also able to like guest Wi-Fi, able to rapidly context switch within getting a guest Wi-Fi done, but also I'm able to manage my AWS cloud instance. So let's select a cloud instance. Let's say I'm adding to Apple One. And well, let's pick something. Let's say 300 terabytes. We want to add 300 terabytes to our, and you would forgive me, this is not our slowness. This is going to AWS right now. So it will try to add it. There you go. Huh. This OneOffice encapsulation of digital genie that is coming along with me to help me run my enterprise is becoming more and more friendly to me. I really feel that I can get most of my IT tasks done. But wait a minute. We were talking about an enterprise operating system. We were talking about the fact that you should be able to manage all your enterprise with it, not just the IT operations. And so why don't we try and test it? Since you are doing all my work, let's say I want to take some time off. So now I'm like, all right, very interesting. It is able to now say next Monday, let's say. I want to start going on a vacation. Saying about how many days will you? And of course, even in the outside systems, any of the systems that I'm interacting with, I'm just any of the users, and I say, wait, first let me check my expense, let's say. Let me check my expense report. Do I have the money reimbursed for me to travel? check my expense report. Expense ID? Ha, who remembers that? What is the report name or description? Okay, it's about a conference. Now it's going to scan and see the conferences that I was attending based on my HRMS query in the Workday. This is going to Workday and querying that. And I was able to say, let's say I attended an AI conference, which is one of the conferences I did attend. And it's saying, would you like me to send a reminder email about it? Yes, please do. Did you know? No, please don't text him. I'm done with that. Stateful, multi-threaded, human-like cognitive operating system. It remembers the threads of all executions and is able to rapidly context switch the exact same way a digital genie would. I remember you were trying to book some time off with me for your vacation. In the middle, you were getting your expenses checked out, and I said, yes. And I say, how many days? Just 2 days would be enough for me to charge my cylinders. Yes, that's correct. What you can see, gentlemen, is that OneOffice end-to-end automation, not siloed little pieces of RPA followed by AI, followed by human middleware, followed by the AI chatbots, followed by some ML, but one seamless interconnect, end-to-end automation, which is necessary for you to be able to deliver efficient time to resolution and an improved customer experience and empowering your end business user to get the service from a digital genie. That OneOffice concept has arrived. The convergence of front and back office has arrived. Disintermediation of significant amount of classic IT and business process operations, L012, is here. And you can get improved value creation, improved customer experience through your cognitive operating system, which provides all shared services. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of the research behind what Phil was talking about and what has been implemented. And may I hand it back to you, Phil?
Thank you, Chetan. Thank you for the detailed and interesting demonstration on how to align the one desk with the one office. Very interesting indeed. So without further ado, I wanted to get Melissa starting the section around the research findings and also to ask Matt a few questions as well about his one desk experience. So over to you, folks.
Great. Yes, hi everyone, and thanks, Chetan. I have introduced myself so we can skip through this, and would like to tell you a little bit about the study that Phil alluded to earlier. This was something that we worked on starting the beginning of this year. We interviewed 100 C-suite executives, both online and phone interviews. And these are enterprise business leaders from around the globe. And we wanted to talk to them about a lot of the themes that you've been hearing so far today, both about cognitive investments and what they're expecting to get out of them. And we even got a bit into the OneOffice and showed them and explained the concept and tried to get their thinking around, doing that sort of decentralization and really getting toward customer centricity. So one of those folks who really helped contribute to this survey was Matt Tomlinson, who's here with us from EA. And before I get into some of the survey highlights, which I wanted to show you just a couple of data points, I really just wanted to pass over to Matt quickly to maybe just describe your role. Matt, what you described to us when we were talking about the survey and how you've been looking at this type of technology and what it's been doing for EA so far.
Sure, Melissa, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so one of the things we were looking at a couple of years ago when we were first starting to research artificial intelligence and cognitive agents was really what was one of our toughest problems that we couldn't really solve. And the challenge for us, a lot of people don't think of entertainment industry as sort of a financial services sort of sector, but we have a lot of account security issues where players are trying to impersonate other players and trying to hack into accounts. It's an extremely challenging issue, and quite frankly, humans are very susceptible to social engineering, and our players are quite aggressive when it comes to that. So we were looking for a way that we could set up a system that could artificially work with our players. But to Chetan's point, human conversation is not linear, right? People don't really want to have an automated IVR. They don't want to be walked down a very rigid decision tree. They want to be able to say, hey, listen, I can't log into my game, and I don't know my password, and when is your next game coming out? And they just sort of send us a barrage of questions, and we have to use a system like Amelia to sort of adapt and to answer those questions and interview the players as much as possible. And what we're seeing is automated cognitive agents like Amelia are incredibly precise and almost impervious to social engineering. The failure rates for automation are quite low compared to humans, and we've seen a lot of really positive gains from even our human advisors, because they see sort of Amelia as a front line of defense, and they know that they can trust Amelia to sort of keep the bad actors out of their contact flow, so that by the time they're talking to one of our customers, they know that they can trust them. So we've seen a lot of really positive ROI as we're moving in this direction.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. That's a really good example of some of what we've been talking about. So just to briefly show you some of this data, some of the highlights, and again, we would invite you to download the report that's available. But first, we asked these 100 C-suite executives what sort of generally their digital business imperatives are for this year. And we were not too surprised to learn actually that investing in virtual experiences to get some of that seamless, touchless type of interaction within the organization was on top, but also that investment in cognitive AI solutions to drive more self-learning business operations to make things more seamless. So I think what we're seeing here is that the executives we spoke with are looking now to do more than just kind of the box checking exercise and saying, yeah, we've looked into digital, or, we put on kind of a flashy front end for our digital interface, but really exploring AI and digital engagement, looking at the organization carefully in a way that shows how this technology can impact business outcomes, how that information flows, and the customer centricity that can come out of it. So that's kind of fundamentally the redesign that we're on the path toward when we talk about the OneOffice. So in the next piece of data I'll show you, we described that OneOffice to our respondents, and that's what they thought the primary benefits would be, to break down those barriers. And so, of course, that alignment to business operations and business outcomes that we've been talking about, and driving the business forward and using that data. I think these two things really go hand in hand in order to look at what are the business outcomes that you're trying to achieve in order to become more competitive. So these are two very important elements of the OneOffice in sort of using that data that can be at our fingertips to be able to better align business operations to business outcomes, which is centrally the core values around OneOffice. So in the next data point, this was just an interesting sort of comparison that we wanted to highlight, because we segmented the respondents into IT and business services respondents. And as you can see, both are really concerned with this kind of legacy thinking and digital mindset coming from both sides, from business functions as well as from IT. But IT is a lot more concerned with the lack of talent, which is interesting, and business is really very concerned about their own legacy thinking. So that's something that I'd like to get some thoughts on as well from Matt and Chetan. But I'll show you one more data point before we move on, which is around asking those who had actually invested and implemented cognitive solutions how satisfied they are with the business value that they're getting and which elements of it. So improved security coming out right on top. Matt, you alluded to this in the EA story, and I think it was a very relevant comment and value proposition for your use of Amelia in the way that you've described it. Other respondents as well, and the CareStream example that Chetan has referenced to, using that for the employee onboarding process, believe it or not, was a security, was huge for their security concerns, as well as being able to process the information more accurately. And this also helped them keep in line with regulatory and compliance, and complying with audits and things of that nature. In addition, of course, to simplifying business processes and a lot of other things that we hear about satisfaction. But I think the point is here too, going back to some of the different tools and maybe an RPA versus a cognitive or AI solution, in that this is not simply about taking out costs. This is about using these cognitive tools that can learn, that can in some cases mimic human learning and context and understanding, to impact these other business outcomes like customer satisfaction, like revenue generation, and really impacting the business model and the way that they operate. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and I'd like to hand back to Matt to talk a little bit about what you've seen at EA, maybe just thinking about that data point. What were the areas that you found the most beneficial, that you found thus far the most beneficial with the implementation of these types of tools, and maybe anything that surprised you around that, things that you weren't expecting? We'd love to hear that.
Sure. Yeah, one of the most beneficial things we saw, as you showed on that chart, was from a security perspective, we really increased the level of protection that we had for our own internal accounts. The number of times that people were able to get through the system dropped dramatically, and the number of people who weren't who they say they were, who got through and talked to an actual human on the other side, decreased as well. And this ultimately led us to an interesting sort of finding where some of the very simple challenges and problems were very short contacts. And so when we were looking at sort of our average contact time overall, well, we thought, well, as soon as we implement a cognitive agent, our average handle time will go down, because of course, everything will be better. But really what we found out was, by eliminating these sort of false contacts, we were actually increasing our handle time, because the true customers who were coming through, who actually were who they say they were, actually had very long and complicated problems. And while they were happy to work with a cognitive agent on the first part of their contact, they were happy to be passed off to a human on the second part of their contact, and that human was happy to have a tedious part of their normal day-to-day sort of call flow handled automatically. And then we've seen a lot of opportunities, since we already had the person in a conversation, and they're already sort of asking multiple threads of conversations. Why can't I get into my game? When is the next version of this game coming out? What is my password? All these various questions. We've been able to sort of quickly train Amelia to sort of handle a lot of the very simple problems and simple challenges, the sort of the FAQs and the simple, can you reset my password, or I need to change my emails. And so again, what we're doing is we're very much sort of attacking these challenges on one end of the demand curve that are very straightforward and easy. And then we've even gone so far as to survey it in focus groups qualitatively, and then we've done a follow-up quantitative survey to really sort of see, where do our players want automation? This is not a new area. This is not, this is not the first AI our players have interacted with. And many times that they've commented on the quality of the interaction was so high that they frequently forgot that they were talking to a machine. They're used to very simplistic chatbots from their cell phone providers and their cable TV providers that just can't handle these multi-threaded conversations. And oftentimes what we found out, or what we discovered, was if the conversation was going really well and they were getting to the point where they needed to go, they almost didn't know or care that it wasn't a human that they were talking to. And so time and time again in our sort of research in our focus groups, we heard them say, hey, listen, if you can solve my problem, that's all I care about. I don't care how it's done. Just make it as easy as possible for me to get back into the game. So yeah, we've seen a lot of interesting gains in some of our early research and experiments, and we're really trying to push the limits and see where we can go with this.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think what would be good next is to get some viewpoints from from everybody really about the One Office and where we see this really shifting. But the first thing, Matt, would be good to hear from you about when you look at the true benefits that you've achieved from this so far. How would you sort of sum them up? Would you say it's more about augmenting the capabilities of your smart knowledge staff, or do you think you've got more benefits from just sort of improving the transactional elements of your experience? How would you really sum it all up?
Oh, it's definitely about the augmentation. It's I mean, we see sort of cognitive agents as a sort of a force multiplier for our existing staff. We're making our existing staff more efficient at what they do. We're really allowing them to focus on the really hard, challenging problems that we haven't had a chance to train AI on. And ultimately, we see it as a smoothing function for when we get a spike in demand. If one of our games has a hiccup and there's a huge influx of contact volume into our contact centers, we want to make sure we can handle that seamlessly with minimal impacts to our players. And so that's something that automation has definitely enabled us to do, and basically smooth out sort of and improve the effectiveness of how our existing agents are already on staff.
Thank you. And I think one of the biggest challenges we see from clients today is creating this sort of culture of inclusion and excitement about the ability of these tools to add value to their jobs and their daily lives. What have you found works effectively in getting people's buy-in, getting them excited, getting them to experiment and try new things here? Can you share a little bit about how that's going and what you think is the way forward here?
Yeah, so as I said, we've done focus groups with both our players, our customers, and our advisors, our internal employees, and we've really tried to understand sort of the psychology of what types of problems do they want to see us tackle next. And what's really interesting is there's a little bit of psychology there, where there's definitely some things that we could train Amelia to do from an automation perspective. And so if your game isn't working, that's a great example. It's a tech support issue, like you just can't get it online. But what we found is from our player perspective is when the players are frustrated at technology, they sometimes don't want other technology telling them how to fix that technology. Sometimes they want an empathetic human online to say, oh man, that really sucks. I'm sorry about that. I had that same problem the other day. Let's get you back into the game. But on the other hand, if they've done something embarrassing, say they've accidentally given their password away to someone and their account was compromised, that's an embarrassing sort of thing that they don't want to have to admit to another player or another human. And so oftentimes when it comes to account compromises or account recoveries or various things having to do with their accounts, they actually do prefer to talk to an automation, even though it's, as long as it's a very sort of empathetic automation, but they know that there's sort of no judgment there, right? They don't have to admit that they gave away their password to their little brother, and their little brother may have sold all their Visa cards. So there's some things like that where we're really sort of looking into, okay, what's the psychology of the interaction? Where do people really prefer? Though speed is of course the #1 priority above all else. Ultimately, sometimes they have a preference one way or the other, but ultimately they want to solve their problem as quickly as possible is their #1 priority.
Yeah, do you think some of this is generational as well, like millennials and Generation Z or Zen, whatever they're called, behind millennials? They grew up in this environment, whereas the Gen Xers and the Boomers, it's still relatively new and foreign to many of us. Do you think there is a generational issue here with really embracing this type of tech and really sharing knowledge?
There's a little bit. We have a surprisingly diverse demographic of players. A lot of our games appeal to different age groups and different age brackets. And we thought early on that based on the generation, people would be more likely or less likely to interact with the cognitive agent. But what we found is ultimately, as long as the cognitive agent is conversational and really it's a smooth way to sort of interact, there were no sort of hard lines along the generations of people who did or did not like to do the interaction. So we were quite pleased to see that even though we suspected that the younger generations would be more apt to do that, it was really just about, can you solve my problem as quickly as possible? And even some of our older generations were more than willing to interact with us on that.
That's really interesting. And I have to ask this question because I had a chat with a couple of our younger analysts just yesterday, and they basically said the one big difference between the millennial generation and the sort of the mid-career folks is that millennials share. It's just you do it because you grew up in this sharing social environment, and so when you start to learn how to use tools like OneDesk or Amelia or RPA tools, these sorts of things, there's much more of a culture of this is how you do this. I mean, you can just go on LinkedIn and all sorts of resources, and there's all sorts of folks just sharing stuff now. And whereas I think the older folks are more used to kind of knowledge is power type mentality. So I don't know if that's something you've experienced, because you work for a very forward-thinking, pretty cool business. Is that something that you've seen very much a trait where you work?
Yeah, actually, we have a strong forum community where players can answer questions for other players, and they feel very empowered by the ability to share the knowledge that they have versus sort of saying that they have the knowledge but then not sharing it. And so now, one of our next challenges is trying to figure out how can we sort of blend together some of what we've learned from this sort of cognitive interactions, which are one-on-one interactions, into that sort of one-to-many forum level interactions, and sort of allow people to share things back and forth. And we've actually heard that of players asking, hey, listen, just tell me what worked for other players, or allow me to share what I've done with other players as well. And of course, privacy concerns are foremost for us there. We need to figure out how to do that in a way that is respectful of everyone's privacy and their data. But it is something that we're very excited to try to experiment with.
Thank you, Matt. And I think Chetan, you've been a key voice in cognitive, actually even long before a lot of the rest of the industry jumped on this. But when you look at the industry now and you look ahead maybe in the next 18 months, what do you think has changed recently? Do you see a different playbook emerging for the enterprise that was different from maybe what you guys were talking about a couple of years ago?
Great question. So what we've seen is the progression on the digital dominance curve. We've seen the people shifting from being experimentalists to piloting to actually going into fast followers to digital front runners. We have seen the BBVAs start to look at their entire 21 million base in Latin America. We've started to see Allstate take 3 million issues coming in a couple of months alone and improve the customer experience of time to resolution from 4.6 minutes down to 4.2 minutes, and first time right up from 67 to 75%. So we have seen much progression as you had estimated and you had envisaged a while back, and I think we have started to see that real progression from pilots and into production and real realization of value. What we have seen in one word would be outcomes. The industry has started to realize those outcomes that were predicted, particularly with technologies that differentiate themselves from the lightweight chatbots, and they are really harnessing the power of that to be able to get some better customer experience.
Okay, thanks, Chetan. I mean, this push around outcomes, Melissa, you've been very embroiled in the world of CX during your analyst career, and I know you've been writing a lot about the impact of cognitive and AI on the customer service function because it's so critical to digital business models. So how can the CX folks really start to embrace cognitive as way more than the chat bot and this small extension of their world? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think the biggest part is, thinking through the problem that you're trying to solve or the opportunity ahead, and there's kind of a fundamental difference in my mind between your traditional rules-based chatbot, which was built, frankly, to deflect calls and to and to cut costs. And yes, implemented well, it can certainly be effective at doing that, but designed poorly, it can also negatively impact customer experience. So this cognitive agent world that I've been researching, which includes the Amelia tools and solutions, is around the capabilities of those tools to go beyond just your basic logics-focused automation, and to learn from that, to provide context and perception, natural language processing, and all those elements that actually have the capability not only to improve customer experience if they're interacting directly with the customer, but also to make the agents or the employees experience more effective, or to empower them or give them knowledge. In fact, in a lot of the examples that we saw in some of the interviews that we did, Amelia isn't even necessarily, or other cognitive style agents aren't necessarily interacting directly with customers. They're behind the scenes. In the Allstate example, they're helping the live agents find the information that they need faster. They're helping them figure out where they need to point the customer, and they're being used in that manner just to help the agent better improve the customer experience through what they're doing. So I think to sum up that piece of advice, it would be to think through what you're trying to do, both with the customer experience design and what you want your customer to experience, as well as some of the outcomes that you're really looking to impact.
Thank you, Melissa. So I think we're sort of coming to the end of our allotted time here, and I wanted to thank our panelists, Chetan Dubey, IPsoft, Matt Tomlinson from Electronic Arts, and Melissa for leading this study. I think it's been a terrific conversation. We've covered all the scope from the technology through to how we, as people, learn to embrace it. And one of my key takeaways was the fact that this isn't just about fancy interfaces and trying to be like Uber. This is much more about how to change attitude, how to learn more, how to do more of it with what you've got. So maybe if I could ask the three of you to share your sort of one big takeaway from today's conversation that you may go and share with your colleagues this afternoon. Maybe Matt, if you could start.
Yeah, sure. The one thing I tell everyone whenever they ask me about some of the artificial intelligence experimentation that we're doing is I say, just get started. You don't need a group of PhDs working for you. There's a lot of really talented companies out there like IPsoft that have some really great software. And I've trained a very junior group of people to do some very advanced things that I never could have imagined doing on my own. So my one piece of advice is just get started.
Good stuff. Chetan, your one big takeaway from today?
Well, the organizational neural net that you described, Phil, and which I call the cognitive operating system for the enterprise, is elevating the existing staff from what chores they do today. What you call the human middleware is being disintermediated from doing those chores, the common chores, and going into more value creation, new lines of business emerging, and delivering that estimated, hey, we can have a 45% margin enhancement through deployment of digital technologies. So it's really taking shape in the market by some digital front runners, and it's an exciting time to be here, and it's a privilege to be able to address such an esteemed audience in the company of the panel. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thanks for the demo as well, Chetan. It's good to see a bit of how this works in practice. And finally, Melissa, one thing that you really took away from today's dialogue?
Sorry. Yeah, I think one thing that I was thinking through as the conversation went on and Matt was describing this, just an add-on to his point, actually, I think is around the people and the change management elements of this, both around the success of some of these things being around transparency, and then using the folks that you have, like your focus groups that you at EA did internally as well as externally with the customers, using the resources that you have and, figuring out the pieces of who to put where as we think through, it's actually very related to the slide that you have on now, how we all sort of need to change the way that we're thinking about our roles in our careers. So I think just from a cultural perspective, embracing that in order to make some of this stuff successful.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. It's been a good conversation. We'll have a recording available if you go to hfsresearch.com, and we'll share a copy of that and the slides with all of you who joined today. So look forward to next time, and a continuing narrative and dialogue around a really fast-moving industry, which is moving very fast. So have a great rest of week, everybody, and look forward to next time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.